Welcome to Action on Pain, a podcast dedicated to highlighting the significant efforts underway in Canada to address chronic pain.
By presenting perspectives from individuals who live with pain, researchers, clinicians, and other stakeholders, we explore various impacts on people's lives and the initiatives, research endeavors, and the committed professionals working to effect meaningful change.
This work is guided by Health Canada's Action Plan for Pain. Join us as we raise awareness and share stories that are shaping the future of pain management in Canada.
Well, hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us, Jennifer Daly-Cyr, Keith Meldrum, and myself, Virginia McIntyre, for another great Action on Pain podcast. We are thrilled to welcome Melanie McDonald and James Boseley. Melanie is Pain BC's Director of Support Services, and James is the Trades in Pain Project Lead. Launched in April 2026, Pain BC's Trade in Pain campaign is a bold, blunt initiative funded by British Columbia's government to address the high rates of chronic pain among construction and trades workers. Melanie and James are here to talk about the campaign and why it is important. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks, Virginia. And it's Keith Meldrum. I'm the West Coast Connection from Kelowna, and I'm really excited about this today and looking forward to this, Melanie and James. Bit of a personal connection myself. I come from out of the construction background. I was never on the tools, James. It wasn't really my path, but I'm on the engineering side, civil engineer tech, and I was a VP of construction. So I've seen a lot happen in the trade. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, likewise. And I can start off by saying it was a real delight seeing you both at the Canadian Pain Society annual scientific meeting. And it was, James, it was our first time meeting in person, and it was really a pleasure to see you both. And I have to say, it's an incredible campaign that you have taking place right now. And the campaign uses such direct and often humorous language to break through the normalization of pain on the job sites, encouraging workers to stop relying on ineffective advice and seeking help professionally. And on a personal note, there's a number of people in my family who've worked in the trades, including my dad was a mechanic for years, and a number of others who've worked tirelessly in the trades area and had a lot of pain that went along with that. So I'm really eager to hear from you today. Thank you so much for being here. That said, can I ask, just to kind of start things off, can I ask you to tell us a little bit more? We've outlined a little bit about the campaign, but can you tell us more about this campaign, why it's important, and why now in particular?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Maybe I'll kick it off and then pass it over to James. Well, this is an incredibly important campaign because we know that disproportionately many people in the trades live with chronic pain. I think up to 86% in terms of acute pain. And then the chronic pain is just over 50%. And I think that's actually low because when we're out there talking to people in the trades, most people that we've met have had some sort of pain. So it's such an important area, and it just really hasn't been addressed. I think there's a lack of awareness, not about pain, because people probably have a PhD in living with it, but in terms, that there's something that people can do to manage it. So that's why it's so important that we've launched this campaign alongside a number of supports and programs. But I'll pass it to James for more.
Yeah, I mean, Melanie is right. Like so many people that we've been talking to, we start the conversation and, are you dealing with any pain? And they're just like, oh no, I'm good. I'm good. And then as you kind of maybe share your story and how pain became part of your life too, then they're like, well, I do have this thing that's been acting up for about 3 years. So too many people normalize being in pain in the trades. They just think that it's part of the job. And it doesn't have to be that way. It is that way, but it doesn't have to be part like that. And I think the good thing is talking to union reps, management in construction companies, talking to the construction associations, they're all on board and trying to change that story where it's a top-down kind of a thing. Because if from top down you're hearing your pain is accepted, we'll do something about it. We'll change your work habits or maybe add some equipment that might make it better for you. to eliminate some of those potentials of leading to accidents, injuries, repetitive strains. There's lots of stuff out there, and I even talked to some companies that have some of these things, and they're still sitting on
Wow.
the shelf
Mhm.
because, guys, it may be a macho thing or
Yeah.
something like that, or they don't trust it. But for example, jackhammers. You can imagine sitting on a jackhammer for 12 hours a day.
Mhm.
Well, there's this machine. It's like an exoskeleton for it that goes over top of it, and it reduces it by 90%, the vibration by 90%, and it hasn't been used yet. So it's one of those things. It's got to be more of a conversation, because that whole vibration on a person's body, that's something that gets overlooked a lot. There's a lot of equipment operators that their
Mhm.
body is in so much pain from the vibration, 12 hours a day, 6 days or 7 days a week,
Mhm.
however long they're working. And a lot of places aren't even accepting those kind of injuries. So it's a huge conversation that I'm so glad that we're actually getting into it and talking to these people. And there's even the policymakers are even interested in what they can do too. So it's not just us versus them kind of a thing. Everybody's wanting to work together. And that's the best part about it.
That is really phenomenal when you think about it. And you're saying, like, it's almost like if you were to paraphrase, sort of, it takes a village. It's taking the entire system, the entire ecosystem to come together to make this happen.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. I can't believe you got the policymakers engaged, because that's quite impressive. Kudos. And, I'm quite taken the stats. 50% of people with trades live with chronic pain, where in Canada it's 20%. So that's more than double. And I think veterans is 44%. So that's even more. Like, these are numbers we need to get out there and make a difference. So glad to see this is happening.
And like Melanie said, I think that number is very, very low. 51, I think, is very low. Anybody I've talked to, I've got some friends where I'm at right now. They're all into cabinetry,
Mhm.
and every one of them are in some sort of pain from years of it. So I honestly don't know anybody that's worked in oil fields, lumber, any of those things that aren't in pain of some sort. But like I said, they've just normalized it for so long.
One of the things that you mentioned, James, like I said, I wasn't on the tool. I tried early. After my car accident when I was 16, I was a carpenter's apprentice, and it just wasn't going to happen in my body. So I went on the other side and went into engineering. But in my construction career, I retired out as a VP of construction, and part of my portfolio was our health and safety program. This was really important. Like, injuries and pain was really important to us, but you couldn't get a worker to admit to it. Even if they had just a workplace injury, if they had a crush injury, we were heavy civil, right? So we had lots of equipment operators, dozers, mining trucks, and we would have all sorts of injuries, and you couldn't get them to report it, because I think there was a fear that they would get in trouble. And also with the long-term pain, there seemed to be this stigma around their fellow workers that if I talk about it, then I'm looked as less than. And so I imagine that is a part of the focus of your campaign. And I just want to say, the language that you guys have chosen with your working group and all that, James, you and I have been on work sites. I got it. The language that I talked when I was at work is not the same language I had conversations with my wife. Let's put it that way. So you got to meet them where they are. So I think that was really smart. And I know maybe some people raised some eyebrows, but it landed there. But, that stigma, does the campaign really touch on, like, just getting people to say, it's okay, I have this problem?
Yeah, I think so. And it's going to take a while. It's one of those things that even if they've heard it and they're seeing it, it needs to marinate for a while for them to feel comfortable about it, because there's still a little bit of a distrust, because, and it makes sense. Look at the cost of living nowadays. So these guys are worried about maybe a mortgage, maybe some car payments, the kids getting into sports, groceries even are going, cost of gas. It's all over the place. So these guys are really scared to take any time off.
Right.
And if it's not accepted at work, then some places might slowly push you out. I'm not saying that everybody, but there is some
we've
that is out.
happened
I've talked to people.
yeah, we've seen it happen. Some employers are not nearly as understanding, right?
Yeah, kind of my experience in healthcare slowly was they were trying to push me out. So I can see that happening, especially in trades.
Mm-hmm.
I think a part of the language of the campaign, it's don't be a dumbass, the campaign. And really it's about disarmament. Really it's about we heard so clearly from our advisory group that if you soften the language, people are just going to walk past. Because as you said, Keith, people aren't talking about it. Everyone's in pain and nobody's talking about it. And not only the not talking about it is not realizing there are things that people can do, from learning about pain neuroscience, learning about pacing, these really basic fundamental pain management techniques that they can do while still maintaining work.
Right.
And so really that's what we're trying to raise awareness to, is this idea of push through the pain, Adamas, this culture of pushing through it, not talking about it, pushing it under the rug. And we're trying to say, let's turn this. This came from the group themselves. This did not come from us at PNBC. We were a little bit like, how's this going to land? We don't want to re-stigmatize.
Right.
But I'm saying that this is the culture that's happening. And so how do we kind of flip that, disarm, and make people go, oh, wait, is that me?
Right.
Is that me? Maybe I should reach out for help.
Yeah. I think that was brilliant. And like you said, James, a lot of people who maybe don't see what the construction world looks like. I mean, the amount of stress that's put on our body. When we had big projects, we would be 7 days of work, 24/7, 12, 14-hour days. The amount of toll and stress that puts on a body is just unbelievable. And to have people just stand there and you can look at them and see they're not there. Well, I'm like, I'm fine. Nope, it's all good. I don't even want to talk about it. So I think this is really, really important. And Melanie, on the government side, like they've partnered with Pain BC on this, and were they really open to this idea of this campaign?
I think there was a recognition. The purpose of this campaign is to create change. And so there was a recognition to do a lot of due diligence to engage people where they're at and think outside of the box, because what has been happening hasn't been working around pain. So I think there was a recognition of that. And there was definitely a caution and making sure to do your due diligence. We don't want to re-stigmatize engagement with key partners, stakeholders, key organizations. And so we did that. And then there was an acceptance that this is important. And then we're going to track it and evaluate it and see what kind of change we do make.
Oh, I love hearing about that, because that information can become so powerful, right? In terms of being able to really demonstrate the impact of a campaign like this, such an important campaign.
Have you partnered with organizations like the insurance companies? Like I know in Nova Scotia here, we have a workers' compensation. Have you partnered with those organizations too with this campaign?
So we've definitely brought them in as far as awareness of it. For insurance, we've got WorkSafe here in BC. And we're actually doing, outside of this campaign, some education for their workforce on chronic pain and how to better manage chronic pain. So that's happening kind of in tandem, but not as a part of this campaign. So there is a hesitance from the workers' side to make this like an insurance agency connected thing. It's more we're taking the strategy to take multiple strategies and partnerships. And this campaign is more about the workers and connecting them to direct support people in the trades. And then we've got other strategies to engage groups like insurance to better educate and inform about chronic pain and change the policies around chronic.
And the nice thing is they are reaching out to us asking what they can do. So which a lot of people, they've got the finger pointing at them for sure for so many different reasons. However, the good side is that they are saying, what can we do better? How can we meet them? What services can we provide for them through us? So that is a huge plus that I'm actually surprised by, but so happy to see.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
To your comment, Melanie, that this is the campaign right now is more focused on the workers and their sort of access to this. That really aligns with goal 3 of the action plan, which is the education and awareness, which is to increase education, specialized training for providers, and raise public awareness and to reduce stigma, which is huge. So understanding that right now the focus is more to connect with the workers and understanding, like you said, James, that others will come because they're already. Can you just explain a little bit to our listeners how the process works. Like, what is made available to workers who come to a point in their lives where they're like, maybe I do need to talk to somebody. So how does this work for them? What do they do?
Great question.
So this campaign has a number of different elements, and the direct support call is to reach out to what's called the Guideline, which is a text-based service that we have launched and developed as a new access point for our pain support line. So it's staffed by registered clinical counselors and social workers to give kind of point of care, emotional support, pain education, and referrals to appropriate services. So it's kind of that connection into the pain world and then connecting them out to other things. So that's one thing is direct support through our Guideline. And then the second piece is we're just in the end of finishing our on-the-job education, so toolbox talks, so that we'll be launching those on the site. Keith, you talked about, safety in the workplace. So a lot of companies are doing a lot around that. But what there isn't a lot about is actually chronic pain education or pain neuroscience. And so we're really excited to launch this because it's an 8-module, kind of 10-minute talks on the jobs that we'll be launching in the next, imminently,
right,
in the next number of months. Yeah. James, did I miss anything?
I don't think so. But kind of partly to do with that education part too is that's one of the big things that a lot of companies are asking is for like lunch and learns, for example, to try and talk to the workers and give them an idea of what is available to them, talking about getting a hold of the Guideline, pain support line, our Coaching for Health program, our groups, everything. Because a lot of people are still unsure. They think that it's just for people in the trades, but it's for everybody. Like this specifically is targeting people in the trades, obviously, but that it's for everybody. And I'm just glad that we're able to have these kind of conversations because my hope is that one day when new students come to trade school, it's part of the orientation even.
Yeah.
Just talk or company orientations with new hires that they talk about pain and that. Because I'm so glad that they're talking about mental health, addiction, even suicide. But that pain part of it has always been missing. And the more I talk about people, they're like, yeah, I mean, my pain started by working in the trades and then it led to an accident, which led to addiction. And so getting in there and talking to these guys and trying to add education into the training programs, orientation, lunch and learns, even coming to some of the schools. I've been talking to some schools about doing lunch and learns there. There's just a huge missing part about that education, but I'm glad that we are getting it out there.
This is such a valuable program, and it's something that, BC is doing. I must give you, I had something awesome, and I like to see it. How do we get this nationally? How do we get other provinces to, I don't believe in reinventing the wheel, to borrow it, to implement it.
Yeah, we definitely want to roll this out nationally. That is our plan. So the first step is rolling this out in a really good way in BC and evaluating it and, getting feedback and meeting with workers, getting kind of the right development and delivery. And then we're hoping to be able to roll it out nationally through Pain Canada 2.0 in the coming years.
Question for you, Melanie. I'm passionate about peer support. Have we thought about that, having peer support specifically for trades?
Yes, absolutely. That's part of this project. And the first step we took is trying to train some groups that are already working in the trades. So partnering with groups like The Forge that are launching peer support for more the mental health and substance use side of things. And so James has been great connecting with them and integrating, some of what we're doing into what they're doing. And we are looking at trying to kind of develop a more tailored peer support offering for the trades. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but that is in motion.
That's great. What is really striking me about this campaign, in addition to just loving it from the moment it hit social media, is as you're describing it, just how incredibly comprehensive it is. And you're touching on all these key points. So it's the campaign, but it's all these pieces that are coming together in the puzzle. You're addressing stigma, you're addressing chronic pain, and it sounds to me like through all this education piece as well, it's an element, a major element of prevention. So the possibilities down the road in terms of, having a positive impact on the healthcare system and obviously a positive impact on the workers. So just find this quite remarkable.
I have to agree. I think looking at it and the way it's rolled out, the text, communication, I think is great. I mean, James, we couldn't get workers off their phones, even though it was, a self-free, phone-free work site. And they were pretty good at it, but they're always on their phones. But I think it's a really great way to connect. And I like the education piece right down to like getting it in schools, getting it in their trades programs. And things, James, you can relate to this, the morning toolbox meetings, right? Like the same thing over and over again. The super talks about in our business, it was 3 points of contact and watch your blind spots. And workers start to tune it out after a while. If you can connect to something that resonates with them, that's where I think, they're going to meet, and it's like planting the seed. They're not going to come up to the super at the end of the day or text, that afternoon. But they're going to hear that more than, I know 3 point of contact. We talk about it 3 times a week. Like, give me something that really, is meaningful. So I think that's like, I just like Jen. I just love the richness and the fullness of the program. And are you seeing uptake? You've been at April 21st, you launched, I believe, right? So what's the feedback? What are you getting?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of social media and news that's gone out and podcasts, and so getting the word out there that way. And then in terms of actual uptake on our guideline, there has definitely been an increase of people reaching out. People text in trades, so we know they're a trades worker, and we're tracking that. So I don't have the data right here, but we definitely are having an increase of people direct reaching out, which is so exciting.
Well, that's pretty good in less than a month.
Well, even just the awareness of it, even the awareness, people that aren't even trades workers have come up to me and, I see, the ads and stuff, or they seen that video with Rob Wells from Trailer Park Boys. And,
right.
We're wanting to do stuff like that to really grab people's attention, because there's so much that we have to offer and so many people don't know about it yet. So like, even when I heard that they want to do this, Don't Be a Dumbass, I was like arms in the air cheering and jumping around. I was so happy because it's true. It's one of those things, and it can be something that becomes, a funny joke on site, but they do take it more serious now that there is more awareness around it. And it's becoming something where they don't have to hide it anymore. They can talk about it.
Yeah, that is great. And we know, on the work site, when something lands with a crew, they can be the biggest support to others, right? But and again, I'm just going to go back to that language, James. Like when it was first introduced to me, I did the same thing to you. I just laughed. I said to Linda from your organization, I said, "That's brilliant. I've been there." This, and I know others would like wrinkle their brow, but I'm like, this is it. Like this is how you connect with them. And I'm really glad to see that they're getting that feedback. And I hope that it does permeate throughout the industry, where workers, you talk about peer support, Virginia, workers can be the biggest peer support for their fellow workers. So.
And this is a good place to maybe tie things up. I think I like to end where James says, "Don't be a dumbass." I love that. And thank Melanie and James and for our listeners for joining us today. But, as you said, let's keep talking about pain. So, I ask our listeners right now to stop and hit that subscribe button to Action on Pain podcast and keep in the loop to what we are doing and listen to these wonderful people out there who are doing great work. Thank you, Melanie and James.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. You guys are doing a terrific thing, having these conversations and really bringing awareness to the surface.
Wow. We're really glad you could be with us today.
And appreciate those words. And we'd also like to thank, all of you who are tuning in to the Action on Pain podcast. We hope this episode has shed some light on the important work going on here in Canada and as guided by Health Canada's An Action Plan for Pain in Canada. And until next time, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on Action on Pain. If you enjoyed the discussion, please follow us on your preferred podcast platform to stay updated, and please share with your networks. A 5-star rating and review would help others find our show. Your feedback is important.
This podcast does not contain any medical advice. Please consult with your doctor if you have any questions or concerns.
The Action on Pain podcast is made possible by the generous support of the Chronic Pain Network, a national research and knowledge mobilization network.
The views, opinions, and content shared by hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Chronic Pain Network or its funders.